Hi everyone, this is Mari Craig, and you're listening to the Small Steps to Wellness show, a podcast where we discuss how we can achieve more wellness in our lives one small step at a time. For the past 6 odd years, I've taken a special interest in nutrition and I've changed the diet of my family on its head. But as I've dived deeper into the world of nutrition, I have learned that health is so much more than just what we put on our plate. This is why on this podcast we will be talking nutrition, mental health, being in alignment, holistic health care, self care, raising children, and more. We will also be hearing stories of women's journeys to overcome trauma and what it has taught them on the way. When we share our stories, we realize we are not alone and that things can change for the better. I'm so glad to have you with me on this journey as I explore what health and wellness truly encompass. If you like what you're hearing, please consider rating the show with a 5-star rating and sharing it with your friends. It really makes a big difference. Now, on with today's show.
Hello and welcome to the Small Steps to Wellness show with me, your host, Mari Craig, where we discuss how we can achieve more wellness in our lives, one small step at a time. I promised after she was here last time that I was going to get her back. So I am back today with Jenna, and we are going to dive deeper into human design. I think, mention this at the end of the last podcast. And since that podcast episode came out, I also had feedback from people saying this was really interesting to hear, and especially the whole how family members kind of function together and how we can learn to kind of understand how I guess we function together as a family. So Jenna's here with me today. I am currently viewing my chart and three of my kids, as if I've got more. My three kids' charts. No more. And
Wait,
we've
how
just
many kids?
yeah, gosh, I know it's a bit overwhelming, isn't it? Um, and we're going to use me as an example, Jenna, aren't we?
Yes, we are.
This is
It's
very
something
random.
that has really come up that I've noticed in almost every client session that I do now. I find myself stopping and saying, wait. Okay, what's their birth date? What's their birth info? And start looking up charts of family members, spouses, children, um, because it's such an interesting and fascinating thing to view and see how these different energies interact and impact each other in a household. It's really potent information to have, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think just also because the more I understand about me, um, the more I also realize that having an understanding of my children can help me interact with them, and then maybe having an understanding of how my children kind of work together can help me kind of organize them. Because I mean, a couple of my kids, they bicker endlessly. It might just be the age as well, but just having an understanding of where I can kind of tweak, let's say, their behavior, it's just, I mean, it's got to be gold, right? So should we just, I don't even know, where
Dive
do we start? Should we dive right in?
in. Let's dive in. Where do we start? Well, first of all, you have three of you are projectors and one of you are a manifestor. So there's no sacral energy happening with the four of you at all, which is interesting. These are just the things I'm noticing right off the bat, just viewing all four charts pulled up, you and your three children. You do have one child with a defined emotional center, and the other three of you have an undefined emotional center. So that's going to impact the rest of you, her emotions. You have one child with an undefined spleen, and three of you with a defined spleen. So he's going to be impacted by your defined spleens. So it's things like that that is such an important concept to understand, because these are energies that are directly impacting each other with feelings, like with the spleen is the center of fear. So the three of you have consistent access to the fear energy generated within you, but Freddie does not. So he's just absorbing any fears or fear type energy that the three of you are emanating. And that gets amplified. It gets picked up by him and amplified. And it can, I've seen in children it pan out to be like night terrors or temper tantrums, where they're just crying and inconsolable. And it's because they're feeling a fear and they don't know what to do with that feeling. And then same with emotional energy. You've got your one daughter, Maddie, that is an emotional projector, and she has waves of emotional energy. Any one of you is around her, and when she's on a high or a low, you all are feeling it amplified. Especially you, Mari, because your center is completely open. You don't even have any gate energy activated within there at all. So
Yeah.
it gets, it's understanding these things, I think is helpful. And as your children grow older, you can speak to them because say Josephine is feeling some sort of emotional energy from Madeline, you can ask Josie, you can, if she's feeling some sort of emotional energy, you can ask her, is there something directly wrong? Is there something that would cause you to feel this way? And if she doesn't have an answer, then you can help her to understand as she gets older and is able to understand this, that this is not her energy to hold on to, and she can release it.
That's
And
useful because I think sometimes what I've just said to them, do you know what? You could probably benefit from being apart a little bit if you just, take a room each, because they're fortunate they have their own bedrooms, and to say it's
yeah,
probably good for you to have a little bit of time apart now because you are kind of, yeah, getting on each other's nerves, but maybe there's more to it than just getting on each other's nerves,
there is more to it. So I would say yes, that is first of all blessed and wonderful that they each get to have their own rooms. It's such a great thing because looking at their charts, and seeing the openness within their chart, it is great for them to have a space that they feel comfortable in, that they love, that they can retreat to and just be in their own energy. And it's so important, especially at bedtime. Given that manifestors are considered energetic beings, even though they don't have a sacral defined, but they do have that like energy cycle when it comes with their urge. But then they go into a rest cycle as well once the urge is completed. And then, of course, projectors, we love to rest. So you have 3 children that rest is very, very, very important for. And it's also very important for them to go to bed and unwind and relax and be in their own energy without anyone else's energy around them so that they can get a proper sleep. So it's really wonderful, first of all, that not only do they have their own rooms, but that you are not bashful about encouraging them to go to their space and love their space whenever they need space, and helping them to see when they need space so that way they can grow up to be adults who understand the importance of space and knowing when they need to just take a break.
Yes, exactly. And I think that's something that it doesn't mean that we, dislike the people we're with. It just means that I appreciate and I respect myself enough to go, okay, I need a little bit of time to myself. I see it with the children as well when they come back from school. Sometimes they're just exhausted because they've been with their friends who they love all day, and they haven't kind of just been on their own and without, having to interact, having to kind of be someone. Because when you interact with other children, at a young age, you always kind of being like a slightly different version of yourself, aren't you? I mean, I guess we all are. We try not to be as we get older, but I think they are exhausted after school, and they sometimes don't understand that they need that time to kind of just be in their own space a little bit.
Yeah, I think that something that just came to me when you were saying that is I can see, like, if you have a projector child, if you have a manifestor child, if you have a reflector child, or if you have a child that has a lot of openness on their chart, period, I could see them coming home from school and it being a really wonderful thing to encourage them to go have some quiet time in their own space. Versus a family that, say, everybody gets home from school and it's just clustered and crazy and chaotic, and like maybe mom's insisting that they're all together, everybody study here, or everybody like let's play together, or let's sit down and have a family meal right now. After school snack, everybody at the table together, and not encouraging them to first come and go into their own space and dump that energy. I can see that being a recipe for all sorts of chaos and disaster and misalignment and all those not self feelings of anger and frustration and bitterness happening.
Mm. Yeah.
Um, I think that could be a really wonderful thing to adopt. Your children get home from school, understanding as a parent who has a little bit of knowledge of human design. Okay, my child, absorbed a lot of energy in her emotional center, or absorbed a lot of energy in his splenic center, or absorbed a lot of energy in their root or their crown center. I think it's wonderful to set like a habit of like, okay, after school, everybody like kind of go and let's have relaxed time now. Maybe read a book, maybe, whatever it is you like to do in your room, cool. Just be in your own energy for like even 30 minutes.
Mm.
Then we can come together as a family and do whatever it is that we do after school together. Especially as they get older, and then there's like all these activities that kids are in, which is wonderful. But then they're going from, a however many hour school day then to however many hours in these activities, and they're just constantly bombarded with just multiple energies. You figure you've got in any given point in time like 10 to 15 to 20 plus people all in one confined space in school or these activities. It's a lot of energies that people are absorbing.
Yeah.
Well, having that and encouraging that, I think, is really important.
It's hard enough as an adult, isn't it? One of the feedback I got on our last episode was that somebody said, "Oh my goodness, I now understand why I hate shopping." Because it's
Yes,
all of that, and you mentioned that when we spoke, that you
yes,
take on all of these people's emotions and feelings, and you come home and you just feel like, you hate the world.
yeah. Get in a really bitter and like hateful place after
Yeah.
I'm in the grocery store.
Exactly. This is why I often, if I do go shopping, I put on headphones and a podcast, and I had the best time ever.
Smart. I'm gonna
Mm.
have to steal that from you.
Yeah. Well, there's a good podcast called The Small Steps to Wellness Show.
Oh yeah, I've heard of it. I think I may have listened to an episode before. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. The American woman was on.
Yeah, she's awesome.
But honestly, it's great just to have these things, and so my eldest, she often will go to her room and just put on some random music and sit and draw or build Lego or stuff like that, and it's just her time to unwind. And obviously she would rather do that all day than anything she has to do school wise, so it's about dragging her out of that as well. But I think it's important. I'm going to actually try to adopt that a bit more, not strictly, but kind of say to them, look, come, maybe just give them like an arbitrary task to do in their room. Like, would you go upstairs and change your clothes from your school uniform or something? And
Yeah,
then just then we have a fresh start or whatever. And then give them because then they have to go to the room and kind of just chill a little bit.
yeah,
Great
smart.
advice. Yeah.
Love that. That's a great idea. So you mentioned to me that Josie and Maddie bicker a lot.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at their chart, and there's a couple things that I see. I mean, first of all, siblings,
Yeah.
obviously, and young age, and confined space, no matter how big your house is. That's what happens. Siblings bicker. But we can look at the chart and kind of see some areas of maybe what might be impacting or influencing this sort of bickering type energy. I mean, one of the first things that I noticed right off the bat is that Maddie does have that emotional center defined and Josie does not. So what could be happening is Maddie could be putting out some sort of emotional energy. And I find this like, because my husband's emotionally defined and I'm open. So I find this happens, the range in the lows can be like annoyance, irritation, anger, depression, sadness, like any of those can be feeling in the emotional lows, right? So Maddie could be putting out one of those energies, and Josie is not only taking it in, and now she's kind of being put in a mood and not understanding why. She's also not amplifying it and reflecting it back to Madeline. So then Maddie's like, whoa, 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 like, why are you acting like this to me? And of course, it's a recipe for disaster right there. My husband and I used to bicker all the time. It used to be like he'd walk in a room, I'd be like, "What's wrong with you?" And then I would get like all super annoyed and angry and like lash out like at a level 10 when he walked in, maybe at a level 5. And I didn't understand that all I was doing was taking on his energy and like bouncing it back at him like times two. And he wasn't understanding that that's what was happening. So he just thought like, why is my wife being a raging bee? Like, and then we would get into an argument about something stupid because it would be the only thing there to argue about because neither one of us is understanding why we're feeling this way. Now we understand when he's feeling on an emotional wave, I can check in with him. Hey, I'm feeling this kind of low vibe energy from you. You okay? And that might not even be my exact words, but it's something along those lines. Like, you doing okay? Do you need anything? Is there something you want to talk about? And he might say, yeah, actually, I do have something on my mind. Or he might be like, no, I'm just feeling this way. And I'll be like, okay, I'm going to give you space. And sometimes I'm not that eloquent with it. And sometimes I will like kind of reflect it back to him times 10. And then he's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And then I'm like, wait, okay, time out. Because now I see what's happening here. And he'll be like, okay. And then we just take our space because then we saw it a little after the fact. But this is how.
But still, we're human.
We're human. And I'm never going to react perfectly when I feel his energy ever. Sometimes I will react pretty well. Like I said, I'll like think, okay, he's feeling this way, and I'll check in and see what he needs. And if he doesn't need anything, I'll check out. And sometimes, yeah, I have a very human reaction. And I just spit it right back at him without even realizing it. And then I'm like, oh, Jenna. But having the understanding allows us to like not let it mean anything or go anywhere serious. We can even laugh about it after. We can definitely come to an understanding quicker. So I think, again, what also plays a role here is age and emotional maturity. They might not have the awareness, the understanding, the vocabulary to be like, okay, Maddie's experiencing an emotional wave and Josie's just feeling it and amplifying it and reflecting it back. But at least you have the understanding.
And this is so spot on, by the way.
Yeah. And you can find a way to maybe guide them through it. Or if it's just for now a simple separation.
Yeah.
But I think it would be helpful for them to understand, like, okay, this is what's happening. This is exactly what's happening. So that way Josie can understand that this actually isn't my feelings to feel. And I don't have to lash out at Maddie about it.
Yeah.
And maybe I can actually turn around and just say, hey, are you okay? And then Maddie
yeah, I love that. Sorry, that's great because
and then
she annoys me so much.
Yeah.
She just says what? And I was like, that's not what because I don't hear necessarily all the same things that Josie hears. And so that's not what she meant. So she takes it on so much.
Yeah. I think the understanding for Maddie is to really like having a defined emotional center. I can't say from personal experience because I don't have one. Seems really hard. It's a challenge.
Yeah.
I remember reading a quote from Ra Uru Hu, the founder of Human Design. And I don't remember the exact quote, but the gist of the quote was that with an emotional wave, there's nothing we can do but ride it out. So I think that for an emotionally defined being like Maddie, it's the understanding that the awareness of I'm in a wave right now, and the understanding that there's nothing she needs to do except ride it out. And also maybe understand how her energy might impact her family because her family is all undefined.
It is so spot on because sometimes I say to my husband, gosh, I don't know what mood she's going to be in next.
They're moody little people. Let me tell you what.
Yeah, and she takes things so personally. It is unreal. It's so like you can't say anything to her before she's like, ah.
The other thing I've noticed about an emotionally defined person that when they don't have the understanding and awareness that that is who they are, and they don't have the self-awareness, they blame external for how they're feeling. So it's very much like, well, she said this to me and that's why I feel like this. And it's like, no, because if you were in your emotional high and she said that to you, it wouldn't affect you the same way. So it's, it's having that understanding that it's not external. It's not happening externally. It's happening internally. And all the things externally are your response to them shifts according to wherever you are on your emotional wave.
Yeah.
Some things that might roll off your back when you're neutral or on a high, or some things that you might laugh about when you're on a high. When you're on a low, you might really snap and lose your marbles.
Yep.
So yeah.
But this, I mean, it doesn't make it doesn't change anything in terms of it. You're basically describing what it is, but having an understanding of that is really, really helpful.
Yeah, I think so too. So another thing I'm noticing, I mentioned already, so I want to talk about it, is poor Freddie with his undefined spleen, living in a land of defined spleens. So he's still a baby. So obviously we can't understand what's going on with him right now.
He can hold his own so far, though.
He could be feeling fears. So he's impacted emotionally by Maddie, but he could be feeling fears. And it can come out pretty irrationally, I think, when you have that undefined spleen, because you have no idea where these fears are coming from at all. So as he grows older, helping him to work through that and understanding that when he's left to his own devices, he's actually quite fearless. But that he's going to be picking up the fear from you and his sisters. Now that center isn't always just fear, it's also instinct and intuition. You guys might get instinctual hits and instinctual reactions. It could translate to him, sometimes these instinctual reactions, to like more of a fear-based, because it's very primal. So there's that with him. The other thing is the root center. I see you and Josie have a defined root center, but Maddie and Freddie do not. So Maddie and Freddie can start picking up on pressures from you guys and stress from you guys. So they feel the pressure from your root center, but because they don't have that sustainable, consistent root pressure energy, they're always going to feel like they have to get things done, and sometimes they won't even know what it is that they have to do. It's like, I got to get this done. I got to get this done. I have to do. I got to do this. I got to do that. I got to have checklists. But like me with an open root, I used to make lists and I could never check them all off because I would just keep adding to the list. There was always things I had to do, and I felt this overwhelming, immense pressure. And even now with my awareness, here's something that I have found, is that I will feel like the past few days, my husband was out of town and I had a lot going on with work. I have a Monday through Friday part-time job. I have my makeup artistry career and business, and then I have my human design coaching stuff. And I had all three things happening while he was gone. Plus, he's gone, so now the care of our dog Melvin is solely on my shoulders. So I was just feeling this overwhelming sense of pressure to get everything done. And I felt like I didn't have enough time, and I was so stressed out the whole time. And it was just my undefined root center kicking in. He didn't even need to be here. He was gone with his defined root center was out the door. And I'm all of a sudden feeling all this pressure myself. So helping them to understand that, like, when they're feeling pressures like that it's not really theirs, and they can release the overwhelming feeling to do, because that just leads to stress. That is where stress emanates from, is that root center. So I would say, like, understanding the centers, the biggest ones for me as far as impacting your feelings in a, I guess, quote unquote, negative or maybe low vibrational connotation. The centers that stand out the most are the emotional centers, because you can feel the emotional lows, the splenic center because you can feel fears, the root center because that's where stress emanates from, and the crown center because that's where anxiety tends to reside. So nobody has defined crown centers in your 4 charts here, which is wonderful. So everybody, all 4 of you, I think it's important that you all understand that anytime you are feeling anxieties, they are not yours. Anytime you are worrying in any sort of way, it is not your worry. I mean, unless there's something very specific circumstance happening in your life that would cause you to worry, left to your own devices in your own energy, worry and anxiety are not your natural state. So understanding that as well. I think understanding our undefined centers is so important in understanding our moods, and then like what to let go of.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
I do worry quite a bit, but it's normally about stuff that the next day I go, why did I worry about that? That's nothing.
Yeah. Well, so I haven't seen your husband's chart. So there's also that dynamic of whatever is going on in his energies, and I don't know what he has defined and what he does not. For all we know, he could have a defined crown center, and that could be why you find yourself worrying about things, and then the next day being like, why did I worry about that? And it's just because you were picking up on his defined crown energy. And now again, everything that I'm talking about is all the not self theme of these centers. I haven't spoken about the wonderful gifts that these centers bring. I'm strictly looking at the not self right now because I feel like when there's strife within the dynamic, that's what we need to focus on, like understanding where that strife is coming from so we can let it go. Essentially, that is what it all comes down to, is understanding, wait, that came from here, and that means nothing about me, that means nothing about my relationship with this sibling or this parent or this child. That just simply is energy I'm feeling, and I can let it go. And I think that
Do you know what? That is a gift, because in an educational setting as well, where, for example, whoever their caregivers are, you know, if they're experiencing stress and pressure to, I don't know, deliver a curriculum or an after school activity or what have you, as an adult, they might project that anxiety or the stress onto the children. And if you have an open crown, as you said, you might take it on and feel like you then have to perform, or you then have to, you know, do all these things, when in fact it's not your stress, it's not your anxiety.
Yeah. It's so true. I just think that simple understanding of like, this is not mine, I can release it.
Yeah.
When we gain that understanding and awareness in all the various undefined or open centers in our chart, that it's huge. For me, it was huge because I have an undefined root, an open emotional center, and an open crown center. So understanding that I could let go of the stress, I could let go of the anxiety, and I could let go of I always felt a lot of depression and just like really low, like sad vibes a lot. And I would never understand why. And now it's like, wait, it wasn't ever really mine. Because I would always be like, I don't really have any reason to be feeling like this. And then I could understand, like, I probably picked that up from somewhere, from something. It wasn't mine. That was a huge shift for me. I haven't felt that kind of low vibe energy in a really long time. So it's been a gift for sure.
That's amazing. One of my children, I'm not going to say who, because some people who listen will know them, takes on other people's feelings as her own. Well, it's one of the girls, obviously. And I wonder if that's due to the emotional center here, or potentially even the open crown. I don't know, but that's interesting as well. And to understand that it's good with the empathy because she feels all the feelings for them, but also to understand it is actually not her to carry as a burden.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And also I think that because you all have open crowns or undefined crowns, I think that sometimes the anxieties and the worries that we feel there gets confused with the emotional center.
Mm.
So I think having that discernment as well, like, Maddie's never going to feel other people's emotions. She's only going to feel her own. She can view them, she can understand them, she can see the cues. She's not going to absorb them and feel them.
Has that
Um,
got anything to do with empathy?
so true empaths have their, like, true, in the truest definition of what an empath is, and that is the ability to feel other people's emotions. They have an open or an undefined emotional center.
Mm.
If it's defined, it's impossible. You're never going to feel what I'm feeling.
Mm. But you can understand from
You
cues,
can
as you say,
understand
yeah.
it. Like, my husband may walk into a room and observe me, and he'll be like, "Oh, I feel your energy," and I'm always like, "You don't, though. You see it, and you can understand it, and then you can be like, 'Hey, are you okay?' Because I'm seeing this from you. I'm seeing all the cues, but you'll never feel it. It's impossible. He's 100% defined in all of his
Mm.
centers. So, like, you're never going to feel any part of me. You're never going to actually feel it. Not the way I mean, because you have an open emotional center, so you understand what that feels like to
Mm.
feel somebody. It can be strong,
Yeah. Yeah.
quite
Yeah.
overwhelming, and
But
it
yes.
feels like you, like
Yeah.
it's you.
Yeah. But so the defined emotional center, that's really interesting. So you can understand from cues, from you seeing, you can learn. So if I then say to Maddie, how do you think that if you were in that person's shoes, how would you feel? Maybe she can't even understand that.
Most likely no. I mean, she can guess.
Mm.
She can, like, place herself and think, like, well, how would I feel if this happened? But, like, but it's all from a perspective of how I would feel if it were happening to me.
Yeah.
It's not from a perspective of I can feel how they're feeling right now and they feel really
Mm.
low and that sucks. So there's a difference there.
Yeah. So interesting. Should we
Yeah.
go over to the gifts? Because this is, oh my gosh, I could talk forever about this because it's so spot on. But
Yeah.
let's talk some gifts. What about I would just see that we all have defined throat centers.
You all have defined throat centers, which is
Mm.
wonderful because you all are here to express yourselves. So, um, let's see. You and Freddie and Josie are all designed to speak from your perspective, to speak your mind, so to speak, because your ajna is directly connected to your throat, for all three of you. For Maddie, and that is the only, sorry, for all three of you, that is the only line of communication for you, is a direct line to your ajna. For Maddie, she is designed to speak from instinct and intuition and from fear. So she will not speak from her perspective. In fact, she's the only one with an undefined ajna. So she is the only one who does not have a fixed perspective. So you and Freddie and Josie all have this beautiful, very fixed perspective on how you see things, what your values are, what your beliefs about things are, how things are. Um, and while it's not impossible to change your mind, it takes work. Whereas Maddie has this gorgeous gift of being able to look at everything and be like, I see your side, and I see your side, and I see your side, and your side, and it all makes sense, and I understand it all. And
Mm.
they all can, and she has this understanding that it can all coexist, and it's all perfect, and every perspective is right. I use quotes on the word right.
Yeah, exactly.
um, And I think fixed perspectives are also very beautiful because you see things how you see them, and because you have that beautiful definition to your throat, you're able to vocalize them and help other people to understand how you see things. Because your perspective is defined for a reason, and it's connected to your throat for a reason, because you have a very important perspective to share.
Love
And
it.
the three of you could have completely differing perspectives, which is super fun. And then you've got Maddie there to like kind of peacemake and see like, well, I see all three sides, and all three of you are valid. So that's a fun dynamic there too.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, I love that. I'm going to explore that one further because that's I'm going to sort of observe and see what I can what I can get from that. I have some ideas in my head already
yeah.
about sort of how actually that yeah. I feel sometimes that Josie and I are clashing because we are quite similar in many ways. I mean, you see, we've got the same centers defined.
So
Yeah.
I was looking at your chart, and you do have the same centers defined.
Mm.
And you've got a lot very similar aspects to your charts, right? I can see where some clashing would come into play.
Yeah.
And it would be in your variables. So you are very feminine in your energy, which means that you take a very laid back, abstract, observe, go with the flow sort of vibe in how you approach pretty much every aspect of life, except for your environment. You like your environment, your work, your home, your relationships to have some structure to it. That's your masculine energy there. Um, Josie's all masculine.
Mm.
So there's going to be some clashing when you're in your lean back, go with the flow vibe, and she's in her very, I want it structured, I want it routine, I want it organized, I want, I have this very masculine energy. If neither one of you are having the awareness of your own plus each other's energy, that could clash. So, like, understanding that, like, she may be craving something that you are not really able to give her um, in just the way she's taking in information, in the way she's focusing her mind, in her perspective, um, the way she's viewing things, because it's all masculine and you are all feminine on those respects. So that
Mm.
I could see some clashing coming there
Yeah. Yeah.
without even being aware that, it's happening. That I could see where that could. So it's more of understanding and appreciating, maybe understanding what your needs are, her understanding what her needs are, and appreciating that, like, the only one who can fulfill them to the level that you would like them fulfilled is yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if she's gonna crave some more structure and routine and organization and more of that masculine side of things, the details and the systems and the structures and the foundations and all that stuff, um, I would say it could really help her to encourage that behavior to do for herself instead of her craving it to be done by you, because you
Mm.
will you
Mm.
will never be able to fulfill that for her, not to the way that she wants it.
She is an extremely disorganized person, but also I see how well she functions when things are organized.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah. So when she has tools to help her, you know,
Mm.
focus and do all these things, then everything flows. Brilliant.
Yeah. So I feel like, and tell me if you experience this, because you are like me, you have the open crown, and so does Josie. Sometimes you can feel really all over the place
Mm.
because you're taking in so much information. And I think, like, besides anxiety and worry, one of like the not self vibes of the crown is feeling like you never have enough and you're in like a million directions at once. I feel like this is where a little bit of ADD or ADHD can exist in the open and undefined crown. Um, I have a hard time being organized too, and sometimes I wonder if it's because of this center. But given the tools, now I have mostly feminine energy anyway, so I'm kind of just like, meh. But given the right tools to help guide her to focus on where she needs to create the structure and the routine and the organization, then that I could see that really fueling her and feeding her and lighting her up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But
Absolutely.
it's hard to know with an open head sometimes. Like I know sometimes I'll have a desire to get organized and I don't know where to start. And I think that's attributed to my open head. Because I'm
Yeah,
just
and
like,
then you start all these things thinking that that's going to be a good thing to be doing to keep organized, and then you realize that whatever you started doing requires too much admin, and then it doesn't happen.
or you get distracted by something that like happen. I find this when I'm cleaning my house. I'm in one room and I'm organizing things, right? And then I have to put something away. It belongs in another room. So I go to that other room and all of a sudden I'm distracted by the things that need to be done in that room. And then nothing really gets completed.
Yeah, yeah. Or like me, I find different ingredients in the cupboard, and all of a sudden I'm cooking 3 different meals in one go. Oh gosh, that reminds me, my hobby's on. You crack on with my gift, and then I'll tell my husband to turn off the hob.
Okay, crack on with your gifts. You are very gifted. Um,
Oh my
so
goodness.
another thing that I've noticed in looking at the charts, the identity centers, the G center. So Freddie and Maddie have defined G center, so they have a very defined identity of who they are. It's very fixed. Um, and as well as their direction, their purpose. You and Josie are undefined. In fact, Josie's open. So you're more fluid. There's more flow there. So you could be a mom, one type of mom with Freddie, another type of mom with Maddie, and a whole other mom with Josie.
Yeah.
And Josie could be one type of sister with Freddie and one type of sister with Madeline, and a whole other like child that you observe when she's just with you. Because what happens when you have that undefined or open identity is you're fluid and you're absorbing, like with any open or undefined center, you are taking on the energy of the defined center around you and you're amplifying it and you're reflecting it back. So that would be a really interesting dynamic to see, to watch Josie be somebody completely different with each of her siblings and versus when she's just on her own. And I think that's where more, not more alone time, but like the continuation of encouraging that time, that downtime for each of them to have to themselves, will help Josie to understand who she is when she's all by herself.
Yeah.
Because I think that one of the pitfalls of, and I have a defined, so I'm not speaking from experience, but from what I've observed, one of the pitfalls of an undefined or open identity center when you don't have the awareness around it is just not having an understanding of who you really are.
I can speak
So
to that. Yeah.
yeah, the best way to do that is to spend that time on your own, expel all the other energy, and then get in touch with yourself and see how you express yourself. You mentioned that she likes to, did you say draw or things like that in her room? That is all wonderful expressions that can help her start to understand who she is on her own.
That's spot on. I do seem to that seems to ring true. And a lot of the I should be doing this because so and so is doing that, and I should be having all these activities. I guess same goes for me really. I should be because so and so can manage, or so and so is doing it, and why can't I, or why am not I not that person?
Yeah, should is a 4-letter word. I don't like the word should. We should all stop using should.
Yeah, exactly. We must. We must. Can I ask you, because I find this just it's a gift, it's basically gold, just listening to these things. What's some of the feedback that you're getting from clients when you kind of show all these connections? And this is also something I should say to anyone listening, that this is something you can offer in sessions with you. And I just think it's so helpful to understand that, because this person works like that, then
Yeah.
it could be, I mean, what is some of the feedback you're getting from other people?
I mean, first of all, everyone finds it fascinating when they really start to, you just see this like look of awe and surprise come on their face. And then they're like, oh, that explains, like, because, in the family dynamic, you're experiencing real challenges. There's real arguments happening. There's real points of contention that happens. And then there's also like the interesting dynamics, the fun side of it, and having this understanding of like why it is like that. It's not so that we can avoid fighting or bickering or confrontation or feeling any type of way. This is never about avoiding. It's not about saying, oh, Maddie has an emotional wave, so like let's avoid like feeling anything around her. It's never about like trying to avoid a fight or a confrontation. It's just about understanding like where it could be coming from, so that way it's it's more about the energy and not about blaming or making it, giving it a definition of your, or defining your relationship by it, I should say.
Yeah.
Like instead of being two sisters who fight all the time and don't get along, it's two sisters who understand that one has a really strong emotional energy and one does not. And that impacts each other. And so occasionally, like, that's going to impact each other in a confrontational sort of way. And also, that is okay. I think having those understandings, when I see my clients come to those understandings, that this doesn't mean you don't get along with your spouse. This doesn't mean that your child and you are going to fight all the time. This doesn't mean, like, it doesn't mean anything about your relationships. It's just an awareness of how you impact each other. So one, you can be more considerate and conscientious, but two, instead of playing the blame game, you can just have the understanding and move on from it without it letting it detract from your relationship with each other.
Yeah, so important.
It's like a big permission slip is what I've noticed. I've gotten a lot of great feedback with that. It's like the what's for dinner question. I think that's everybody's favorite. I think that's everybody's favorite when we talk about that. But
yeah, I had feedback on that as well.
Yeah, I always get that, the what's for dinner question. Like, I should just offer sessions just based around what's for dinner.
I also get to a point on, and I think that's also with being the default parent, the one that is mostly around, that I get to Friday or Saturday. My husband goes, "What do you fancy for dinner with this weekend?" And I'm just like, I can't make another decision. I have decision fatigue. I cannot think anymore about any dinner. I want food. That's what I want. I don't care, just something.
Yeah.
I am done. Right. I do, and I think maybe thank you, Root Center, that I can sort of cope all week, kind of go, 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 go. But I do also get to a point where I'm just like, okay, done.
Yeah, because it's not sustainable for you. You do have that motor energy happening, and so does Josie, and it's wonderful. But like, it's important to realize that just because you have that motor energy doesn't mean push yourself, because you will break.
Yeah.
You will burn out. No matter how much you love what you're doing, doesn't even matter. It's not a go 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 situation.
Oh, exactly. This is so useful. Oh gosh, we can go on and on and on about this. Do you want to mention one last thing, and then, because I don't know, it's how long have we been going for? An hour?
I don't know. We've been going a while, huh? Yeah, absolutely. What, your listeners don't want 5 hours of content?
They may do. I feel like there's a bonus thing coming on here. Where do people start if they want to try to work these things out before they realize that they need you in their lives, and they kind of
I think here's the thing, start by looking up the charts of everyone in your family, in your household. And start by having a basic understanding of their energy types alone. So understanding that the three of you, Maddie, and Josie, are projectors who do see others and each other deeply, who do rely on rest, who do need to wait for the invitation instead of inviting themselves. Having that understanding first and foremost is really key. if you didn't understand that your two girls were projectors and you treated them the way the vast majority of our world operates, and that is in a very go, 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 be productive, show up, do the thing, just do it, all that generated propaganda, you would be burning your daughters out, and you would be raising them to think something's wrong with them, obviously unintentionally, but they would grow up believing that they were lazy or procrastinators, or what is wrong with me that I can't just go. So I think having an understanding of your the people in your household, their energy types, specifically if you have children, understanding their energy types so you can encourage what they actually need versus encourage what goes against their grain. That right there is huge.
Yeah.
You have Freddie, who is a manifestor, so understanding that right now as a child he's going to be very vocal and not discouraging him or diminishing his voice, because that's going to be very important as he gets older, that he needs to be able to express himself, because that is a huge part of being a manifestor. Understanding that he's going to be independent and will need to make his own decisions. He's going to need to pioneer his way forward. He can't be told by you what to do. And it's not like saying don't give your child any boundaries or discipline. No, but like, you're the parent. So finding a creative way to encourage the fact that he is the initiator and he is meant to lead and he's meant to lead you, understanding that and putting the trust in him and helping him, as you being a projector, help guiding him to use that to his best interest and effectively. So I think like just understanding energy types alone is huge. After that, taking a look at the centers and all of that, I mean, that if you can gain a basic understanding of it on your own, I would say look at the emotional center, the solar plexus, if it's defined or undefined for you and for the people in your household, and understanding that emotional energy will impact each other.
Yeah. And so obviously I'm looking at our charts here now. So can you just when you see it in front of you, so if you go from the top, you've got the crown on the top.
Yes.
Yeah.
The crown is the first center at the very top,
yeah,
of the body graph. The next one below it is the ajna, and that's the center of perceptions. Then below that is the throat, and that's the center for communication.
Yeah.
Directly below the throat is the G center, that is the identity center.
Yeah.
And then when you look it down and right, there's a tiny little triangle that is the heart or the ego or the will center. It's called all three.
Yeah.
That is the center for motivation and willpower.
Yep.
And then downwards to the right of that is the emotional center. That is a triangle that the point faces left.
Yep.
And then when you're just following the body graph down and around, the very bottom is the root. And then the square on top of the root is the sacral. So sorry, the root is a pressure center, and it's the pressure to do, the pressure to get things done. And that's where stress can exist. And then the sacral is the square on top of the root. And that is the center of creation and desire. And it is a life force energy. Generators and manifesting generators are the only types that will have that defined.
Yep.
And then the triangle all the way to the left, where the point faces right, is the splenic center. And that is the center of fear and intuition.
Fantastic. So I've got two children here with an ego center defined.
Yes. Yeah. They're going to have very strong willpower.
Yeah.
They're going to be strong-willed. They're going to be motivated by their desires. It could very well be materialistic desires. You could see it manifest in that way. A lot of people with defined will centers will be quote unquote materialistic, but it's not a bad thing. It's just a strong motivator for them, and that's okay. So not making them feel bad when they really do, like you might be, because you don't have that defined, you might be the kind of person who's like, I just want a comfortable house to live in. I just want a nice car to drive. I'm more concerned about the comfort, the safety, the ease, the freedom, like those feelings. And Freddie could grow up and be like, no, I want the Lamborghini because it's cool. And that's okay. He can feel that way, you know, and Maddie can grow up and be like, well, I want the Chanel bag. You know, and you're like, I just want a nice sturdy bag that's gonna hold all my things and look cute and like not fall apart on me. And I don't mind spending some money on it. And she's gonna be like, no, I want the Chanel bag. And that's okay. That is all right, because you know what? That's gonna be a motivator for her to create and to move mountains and to make the things happen that she wants to make happen.
Yeah.
So
No,
she'll
this is it's fun. It's interesting because I definitely want the security and the safety and the practical stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah, it can
Yeah.
look good by all means, but
Yeah. Yeah. And
yeah.
both are great. Both are
Mhm.
great.
Yeah.
And it might not manifest in a material. It might be like, it might manifest in some other way. It might not be a Chanel bag, you know, it might be like, I'm going to work really hard because I want to have a really nice, like big house to
Yeah.
live in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
But
it's interesting that they have it defined
yeah,
and Jason I don't. Yeah. No,
I
it's,
see like the charts when I'm looking at them, like Freddie and Maddie are very similar, even though she's a projector and
yeah.
he's a manifestor. There's a lot of similarities going on there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the profile is the same as well. Now, do you
Yeah.
know what? I think these things could be so useful for people in families to kind of get more empathy, sympathy for each other, understanding of this is how I might respond better, or I guess avoid some conflicts, not for the sake of not having a conflict, but just like, is this worth it? Or where is this coming from? Just more understanding. I think it's
Yeah.
got.
Yeah. I think it's
Mm,
gold too. More
mm,
understanding is always key.
yeah.
Um,
When I first got introduced to human design, I was a bit like, yeah, whatever. We've spoken about this before, I think, and then sort of the more I looked into it, the more I was thinking, gosh, this could be uh, so useful, and so many pieces of the puzzle were just falling into place, and it makes an awful lot of sense seeing it as you and I are doing here on this screen. I'd urge anyone who's curious about human design to do a reading like this, actually, because I've had people having readings with others going, I can't believe that somebody who didn't know me could still know so much about me.
yes,
Mm.
it's so true. I
Yeah.
think having your chart read is so important. Having an understanding of your chart, first and foremost, is the most important step, because you need to understand yourself. You have to understand, you have to have that self-awareness. So then you can turn that awareness towards the others in your life.
Mm.
Then you start to direct your focus on understanding everyone around you and how you are impacting them and how they are impacting you. It just makes for a more harmonious way of living. And that is the key of human design, right? The whole idea is that if we are operating in alignment with our unique design, we will be operating our life in harmony. And if every single human on the planet was operating in harmony, we would have a beautiful, harmonious world to live in. That
Yeah.
is not to say we would have a world without challenge, without obstacles, but we would be coming at it from a place of harmony.
And
And
I understand how I'm going to be dealing with this based
yeah,
on my chart and how I'm
yes,
designed. Yeah.
yes. And the other, I think, very important point of human design that is so basic, but that I want to drive home, is that every single person is 100% unique. There are no two charts that are identical, even twins. And now, while on the surface, the most basic components of the chart may be very similar, there are things that I haven't even dove into in human design. When you get into the colors and the tones and like all these different levels and of touch points and components of human design, that the gates, or the not the gates, but the transit gates and all of that sort of thing. Like, I don't have an understanding of that yet. That is the level where our charts get to be really differentiated. That is where the total uniqueness comes into play. Um, and I think that why that is an important point to remember is this: there are 7+ billion people in this world, and every single person is unique. Understanding that literally nobody on this planet operates the same way you do is huge, because what I believe we have done as a society up until recent history is we have operated from a point that we should all be the same, and anybody who's different is wrong. And this is saying no one is the same and everybody is right. And I think that that's beautiful and important, and that is what is going to be the driving force of ushering in this new paradigm, this new way of being in this world. That we all see our current world crumbling. We all see the systems and the foundations and the structures that we've been abiding by for so many decades. We see them crumbling before our eyes. And that is because we are shifting towards this understanding that we are all unique, and that's okay.
Yes, that's okay, exactly. And you don't
Yeah.
even have to talk about human design in this. I'm so into education at the moment, because I got 2 kids in school, and just the whole notion that we all have to be taught differently, but when it comes to a test situation, we all have to do the same test in the same conditions and operate the same way. And then they wonder why some people do well and some others don't, you know? Um, it's understanding that we're all different, and as you say, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Yeah.
it's important.
It's a whole other podcast, but man,
Hmm.
we could just get our school systems to understand the basics of human design and to treat every single child as an individual. That would be huge leaps and bounds forward in creating a whole, like, different, peaceful, harmonious world.
Yeah, I know. I think we needed a bit more money for the schools to do that, but
Yeah, right. Okay.
that's it might be wishful thinking, but I think you're right. Even it's a basic understanding.
Yeah.
Listen, thank you again. This
Yeah.
yeah, I'm fascinated, because obviously I could I feel I need to say this as well before we stop, that obviously you don't know my children, you've never met my children, or me for that matter. You've never spoken to my children or seen my children, and yet the things that you pick up on are so true for them. And it says a lot about your ability to see a human design chart and read it, but also how spot on human design is. I just love it. I think it's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is spot on. It
I'm
is.
going to put in the show notes again how people can contact you if they want this same kind of service that we just had a bit of a snippet on now. I would highly recommend it. And the way you do it as well, it's so well, it's kind of the way you've been talking now, isn't it? It's the same way you
Yeah.
operate with clients. So I guess this was your taster, everybody, of what it's
Little
like
taste.
working with Jenna.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer in not just giving somebody a reading. I'm guiding you to understanding. So it's more of we're having a conversation, and I'm really, understanding, giving you space to speak up about what resonates and why, and then, I'm picking up on the things that you're saying, and then, well, okay, well, let's dive a little deeper into that point you just made about what's going on in your life, and see how your human design is playing out in that. And so my sessions aren't really structured because I am very feminine. It is more of I'm leaning back and I'm taking in what you're saying, and we're guiding the session from there. So it becomes a true application of how this can work in your life
Yeah.
and for those around you.
It's
So, yeah,
usually the best way to work, I find as well. Just see
I
where
think so.
everything takes us. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Thank you so
Awesome.
much for having me today.
Oh my gosh, it's been, can you see it's so dark where I'm sat?
I know.
It is bedtime.
It's bedtime.
And you
Yeah.
just started your day. Thanks so much again, Jenna. I'm sure I'll get you back on another time to talk, maybe when the school system has been fixed, hey?
I would love to come back on. We could talk about anything. I love speaking with you and sharing with you.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Thank
You've been listening to the Small Steps to Wellness show with Mari Craig. I am passionate about helping mums get their energy back through simple nutritional changes, because we know that if mummy is happy, the family is happy. If you would like to connect with me, you can find me on Instagram under @smallstepstowellness, or visit my website smallstepstowellness.info. Speak to you soon.